We gotta stop making fourth movies to animation trilogies. Kung Fu Panda 4, starring Jack Black, Aquafina, Viola Davis, Bryan Cranston, Ke Kwan, James Hong, and more, is about Po gearing up to become the spiritual leader of the Valley of Peace, but also needing someone to take his place as the Dragon Warrior. Now, the Kung Fu Panda trilogy is one of my favorite animation trilogies of all time. I will go as far to say that it is as good as Toy Story, if not better. That's mainly because I'm not the biggest Toy Story fan, but I am also a massive Kung Fu Panda fan. The first three movies are all brilliant. The villains in those movies are spectacular. I think that they're some of the best animated villains of all time. And I was decently excited for this movie. It kind of got shoved under the radar because of Dune Part 2, and the overall marketing for this movie was pretty low key, but I was pretty excited to go see it still. It's a series that I really, really, really enjoy, and there's obviously still more to do with Po and with the characters in this universe. And I was left pretty disappointed by this movie. I didn't have too high of expectations. I knew that there's a possibility that it just wasn't going to be that good at all. The trailers weren't too impressive, but I do want to get into some of the good things about it. Starting with Viola Davis as the villain, she does what she can. She has a pretty fun time with the character. You can tell that she's having a good time behind the voice of this character. But the funny thing is, I completely forgot what the villain was even called. I think she had a name. She was a chameleon, but again, like, that's really all there was to her. There really wasn't that much. Bryan Cranston and James Hong have a lot of fun. They have really, really, really good chemistry together. Honestly, a movie of just the two of them going on a buddy cop adventure as Poe's dads would honestly be more fun and a better idea than whatever this movie actually turned out to be. I have a feeling that just a movie of those two getting into some shenanigans would, again, just be more fun than what this movie really was. Ke Kwan was in this movie for a very limited time as well. He voiced a character named Han, and in the time that Han was on screen, he was having a blast. Ke Kwan is always just a very nice voice to hear in a movie, even if you don't see his face. Jack Black as Po is always a standout. You know what you're getting with Jack Black performances. It doesn't differentiate from any of his other Po performances. He's charismatic, he's funny, he's charming, he's everything that you want Po to be. So overall, the performances in this movie, I think, were very strong, very solid. I just think that the narrative overall really didn't hit that well. The themes about change in this movie are definitely things that you want to hammer home to kids, and it's a good message, especially in a world where there is so much change. You want to hammer that in to kids, that it's okay that there's change. There's no need to be scared of it, and that it's something that everybody has to deal with. And then just the animation, it's still mesmerizing. You still get absolutely sucked into the world that they are in. It's so visually appealing to watch the kung fu fight action sequences. It's just very cool to watch, and the animation in the entire series is absolutely stellar. This one does a very good job at it as well. Probably the weakest in the entire series, but still, I could watch all four of the Kung Fu Panda movies over and over again because they're just very appealing to watch. But with the good out of the way, let's get into some of my complaints about this movie. It is just extremely predictable. You know where it is going from the get-go. You know what is going on. You know what's happening. You know where this movie is headed. It was just very easy to pick up on and know what was going to happen. And while I like Bryan Cranston and James Hong in this movie as the dads, there was absolutely no point for them outside of one really, really, really stupid Ex Machina moment. They were just there to kind of pad the run time and be comedic relief, and they do a good job because, again, I enjoy the banter and the back and forth between those two characters, and I really enjoyed it in the third movie as well. I think it gets really amplified in this movie, and again, while I enjoy seeing them on screen from a narrative perspective, it doesn't make any sense to have them in this movie as much as they were. And overall, not many of the jokes land, and that's not just me saying that I'm a 20-year-old that doesn't like the humor of a kids movie. It's that kids in my theater. There were hardly anybody laughing at points where it was supposed to be funny. It was pausing for comedic effect, and nobody ever laughed. There were just multiple times where the jokes just didn't land with anybody in the theater that I was in. And then the only performance that I really wasn't too impressed with was Aquafina's character, but I think that was, again, more of a narrative issue and script issue. Is just that her character was laughably bad. Her motives made no sense. Specifically in the third act, her character decisions are not set up whatsoever. They're completely out of nowhere, and they don't set up anything whatsoever for her character decisions in the back half of this movie. So you really don't feel anything in the final fights because there's no setup specifically for her character. And minor spoiler, her relationship with the main villain and Poe's relationship with the main villain, and just how they intertwine together. There's no setup to make you really care or feel anything in the final fight. Whereas the final fight in all three of the previous movies, it's like, oh damn, like this is personal. This is like so much emotion just coming out onto the screen. And then in this one, it's just like, yeah, they're fighting just because Poe has to, and he's the Dragon Warrior. And that's what makes the other three Kung Fu Panda movies just so good, is the villains and how emotional the fight sequences are. And then in this movie, it just falls completely flat. Now, I'm going to give my rating for this movie. I'll give it a solid 3 out of 5. But there's one decently big spoiler that I'm going to get into. So if you haven't seen the Kung Fu Panda movie, don't watch this part. Or if you just don't care whatsoever about going to go see this movie, then I guess you can watch. But that's your spoiler warning. This is my other pretty big complaint about the movie. It could be chalked up as a minor nitpick, but to me it's a pretty big complaint. So the chameleon brings everybody back from the spirit realm, all these kung fu masters, because she's never able to learn kung fu, and that's pretty well documented in the trailer, and you get the idea of that. And they bring back General Kai from the third movie, and all the other villains. They bring back Tai Lung and some other villains that we've seen throughout the Kung Fu Panda movies. Now, once the big fight's over, Poe wins, everything goes down. All of the villains get released from their cages, and they come up to Poe, and Tai Lung is like, all right, well, we're good to go back. Huh? So I'm okay with Tai Lung and maybe a few of the other people just being like, yeah, we'll accept going back to the spirit realm. But when you have General Kai, and the entire point of his character was getting out of the spirit realm and going back to the mortal world, so why is he completely fine with just going back to the spirit realm? It makes absolutely no sense. So that was a pretty big complaint for me. It's just a complete disregard of the third movie from the writer's room, and I guess it just slipped by them because it was not addressed whatsoever why General Kai was completely fine with going back to the spirit realm after the third movie, where he wanted to be completely out of the spirit realm. So those are my thoughts on Kung Fu Panda 3. Again, I'll give it a solid 3 out of 5. Let me know what you thought of Kung Fu Panda 4 down in the comments below. Let me know, as always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Follow me over on Letterboxd and on Twitter. Links for those down in the description below, and we will see you in the next movie review.